Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar from TriStar. My name is Thiagu Palaniappan. Today's topic is going to be the multi-body design that PTC introduced about a year ago when they introduced Creo 7.0. That was one of the biggest enhancements. So we'll talk about some of the use cases here in this webinar. Before I begin the webinar, all of you will be on mute throughout the webinar, but feel free to start typing in your questions in the questions area, and I'll try my best to answer those questions as much as I can by the end of the presentation here. So those who are not familiar with TriStar, we are a company that specializes in helping manufacturing companies adopt software systems and processes to enable better and more efficient product development, right? And then we do this by being one of the largest worldwide value-added reseller for PTC. If you are familiar with PTC, they create Creo Parametric, Windchill, MathCAD, etc., and we are their largest worldwide resellers. TriStar is headquartered in Phoenix, Arizona, and we do have our application engineers and our sales team spread across the United States and Canada, right? We also have, tremendous experience with Windchill implementation. We do offer a lot of custom solutions, best practices, training with our team that has a lot of industry experience in there. So with that said, I just wanted to really go over the new enhancement in Creo 7.0 as to how it's very useful, both from a usability standpoint, from a productivity standpoint. There are several use cases that some of you may have already been trying it out. I'm thinking if you're already on 7.0, or maybe if you're on Creo 4, 5, or 6, maybe you're looking to upgrade to 7.0. Hopefully this webinar gives you a little bit of insight into how it could benefit you as a company, right, for your use case, and also help your current design process there. So starting Creo 7.0, when you launch Creo and open any file or create a new part, for example, right, open an existing part or create a new part, you're going to see this bodies in the model tree, right? So they have enabled bodies, which essentially allows you to create in one single part multiple bodies, and then you could use your Boolean operations such as merge, intersect, subtract, split body for several different use cases, right? It could be on the design side, it could be on the simulation side, it could be for creating complex geometry, it could be even for generative design. There's a lot of use cases, including support inside of Creo visualization, or even in Windchill with Windchill 12.0, they do support creating this structure if required, right? So I want to talk about a lot of things here in the next 45 minutes or so, and then we'll take some questions in there. So if I go to, let's go to some of the use cases. Before I talk through some of the use cases, I thought I should at least give you a basic demo. Some of you may be quite new to this multi-body, and you may or may not have seen some examples of multi-body in the past. So let me just switch to Creo real quick before I go to some specific use cases and talk through for somebody who's never seen multi-body being used in Creo. How does it look like? What are the basics? We'll just go through a typical example that I'm going to pull up a PTC tutorial here to bring and I'll show you where to download these. There are some very good resources as well that'll kind of help you play with it, right? So what I have here is one of the PTC tutorials that I just pulled up here. All we have is, as you can see, I'm using Creo 7, by the way, the latest date code 7030 that I'm using. And I do have a couple of sketches in here, sketch 1, sketch 2, right? But only 2 sketches in the model tree. However, I do have several geometries in one sketch, and I'm going to take advantage of the sketch region that PTC introduced in Creo 5. I'm sure some of you may be aware of it. The sketch region allows you to select regions rather than going into the sketch mode and copy edge or project edge and then trim and all that, right? So instead of that, I'm able to just go switch to sketch region, either through the selection filter here from geometry, right? Or I could just use my keyboard shortcuts, right? I'm going to just say Shift S, and you see how it switched to sketch regions. Shift and G switches back to geometry, right? Pretty straightforward in here. So when I go Shift and S, it switches to sketch region, and here I'm able to select multiple regions in here. As you can see, even though they're all done in one single sketch, I have the option to select them as a region and then extrude it, revolve it, create a fill surface, what have you, right? So the system is automatically doing that copy edge and everything that we used to manually do prior to Creo 5. That's a pretty nice enhancement. So I'm going to take advantage of that right in here. Maybe I'm going to just say, let's extrude this. Just, some simple rectangular extrude pretty much so far, nothing new here. Maybe I go shading with edges just to make it look better right in there. So I've done a very simple extrude, and what that section is now is actually a subset of some of these, right? So that's the advantage of using that sketch region. Okay, so but the thing is, it's still having one body. So by default, when you create a new part or open an existing part, right, it always has one single body, and all the features, solid features that I created so far is contributing to that one body, right? That's what it is. Now I could go ahead and create additional features. For example, maybe I want to go capture these guys in here. Maybe I would have done it as a whole, but just for an example here, I'm just going to do it as a cut in here. We'll just go, just remove some more additional geometry here. We'll just go add some cuts in here. There it is, right? I did about 3 features so far, and all of these currently, right, are contributing to that body right there, right? And it has its own ID and everything. So let me just get rid of the geometry ID and all that for now, so I can just see the model tree here. But you get the idea. These 3 are contributing to one body there so far, right? Now, what happens if I go and I'm going to add a few other sketch regions in here, and I'm going to go extrude. I'm going to give it an extruded depth here. By default, it contributes to body 1. However, in most features, right, like your sweeps and extrudes and revolves, you're going to see this body option in your dashboard starting Creo 7, where would you like to create a new body or use existing body, right? I could also right mouse and say, okay, I want to go create a new body. So what it did was it would use a new body here, right? Body 2, we can rename them, etc. So right now I do see 2 bodies in my model tree, as you can see here, right? I'm seeing body 1 and then body 2. And as you can see, extrude 4 is contributing to that. The rest of these 3 extrudes are contributing to the other guy right there, right? And I can display these, right? I can go in my 3 columns. I could just say, okay, show me the contributing body, and it'll show in your tree, especially when your model tree gets large. In a much more complex model, it might be nice to say, instead of each time going in here and saying, you're able to see, okay, extrude 1 is contributing to this one is contributing, and you can change that anytime. I'm able to go and edit definition, right? And I can switch it back to a different reference right in here. Instead of this, I want to switch back to body 1, for example. As you can see, I can do that, or I'm going to cancel out of that, or I could just go use my edit references. Just like your parent-child relationship that has feature IDs and geometry IDs, you do have a body ID here, and I'm able to use it as a reference. I can say, instead of body 2, I want you to be using body 1. So there are quick ways to change it as well. You could also generally, just create a new body. You can create a new body and then start adding features inside of that or contributing for that feature. So what is the advantage here, right? What is the purpose of doing this? I know, it could be a weldment, or it could be even several use cases I'm going to discuss throughout the webinar here. But for now here, this is a special use, it's a simple operation type use case where I'm trying to do a shell on the bottom side, but I don't want a shell in the top. It's a different use case. I'm using it, and I'm going to get rid of that second body or merge it later on, right? The other advantage of using bodies is I'm able to apply different materials, right, to these, or even different appearances. So for example, I may go and say, I want to go, let's see here, we'll just select some other color for the second body. That's, so that way I know there are 2 different bodies in here. As I'm doing the demo, there are like this body 1, body 2, and I can do Boolean operations and everything on it, right? Now that body 2 is active, I should be able to go grab that surface region again and keep adding some more additional ones. By default, if it's cutting through the material, it'll remove. So I'm going to say, I really like the little mini toolbar inside of your dashboard these days with Creo 6. That's a pretty nice one, so you don't have to go up here all the time. Just your focus stays on the design, right? It's pretty nice. And there it goes. I have simple one that I did here. And right now that extrude 5 is again contributing to that body too, right? And maybe I want to go and do another extrude in here, and I'll say, okay, so maybe I don't want the remove material, right? I just left it some value in here, so there it is, right? Again, it's going to add material. And again, as you can see, I'm kind of building this body or adding more features to this new body that I created in there. Okay, so having done so far, I could always say body 1 should be my Act 2 body, right? So it's the default body. The default body is essentially making the system aware that if I create new features like extrudes and revolves, it will pick that as a contributing body, right? Or the default body where it'll be added to. And you can switch that anytime if you would want, like, but that doesn't apply to engineering features like rounds and chamfers where the system understands. So even though I have the gray body, right, as my, let's say I want to go and rename this. We'll just call it gray body here. And I'm going to call this guy, we'll just call it yellow body here. There it goes, right? So the gray body is the Act 2 body right now. But even though the gray body is active, say I want to create a quick round in here, right? I want to do a round in there. We'll just add a couple of edges on this one here. When I'm doing that, it understands that edge belongs to the yellow body. Even though this was a default body, it understands to add that round to the yellow body, right? Now what happens, that is a single edge belonging to the yellow body, but what if I select, when I do my rounds, maybe I want to go and add rounds to these edges from multiple bodies. That's also possible, right? It understands that part of that geometry is in this body and part of that is in the other body. So it knew, and so can you see how it says the round number 2 is actually contributing to both the bodies in here, right? So you could also have done the separate set in there, but let me just increase the column in here and see. So you could see how this is contributing to multiple bodies in there. So it understands that. If I do add a round in here, you know what's going to happen? It's going to, it's not merged, so it's going to create a round like that and like that, right? So we don't want that. I'm going to merge all these later on anyway. So that's the intent. That's a design intent in here. Having done a little bit of features in here on 2 bodies. Now my main goal, like I was telling initially, is to use this as an operation to create my shell just on the gray body area, right? That is my intent. So I'm going to go back. That's why I have that as an Act 2 body, right? I'm going to do a simple shell in here, and we'll just open this up, and all it's doing is shelling only the gray body right now, right? That's it, because that's the Act 2 body, and that's it, right? There it is. Now, having done this, having accomplished what I wanted, right? Let me just hide some of these sketches that I don't need anymore in here, right? There it goes. Having done what I wanted to do, I should be able to merge and do some Boolean operations. So you could select these bodies, and then there it goes, right? You can go add, you could go intersect, or create a subtract or split. We'll cover all that, in several different examples throughout this webinar here in a bit. But I would like to just go merge that. I'm going to go merge. And then my modifying body is going to be this this body in here, and there it goes, right? So you see how it gets the color of the original body, or the parent body that I activated before I did the merge, right? So there it goes. So this is just one little use case. Now, once it's merged, right, what happens to the other body? It gets consumed. Now, is there a way to show that consumed body? By default, it's gone, right, from my tree, but I could go to my little tree filters and go to the body here, and there are different types of bodies, right, like construction bodies, bodies with no geometry, with no contributing features. In different use cases, you might use that. Consumed body is kind of what I did here. I could just say turn on my consumed body in there, and it still shows that right in there, but it's consumed, right? That little icon tells you it's consumed in there. So you could turn that on if you prefer, or by default it's turned off in there, right? So There it is, right? So got that one body here, and we accomplished what we got. I could still keep adding new bodies. For example, I could either do a new body, or maybe going back to my surface region, right? If I go and unhide those in there, and going back to my surface region, I should be able to go do another extrude. And let's see here, we'll just do a little symmetric depth in here, just some extrude in here, right? I would like to add this to a new body instead of the gray body. So there's my new body in there, right? So there's my new body. Maybe I want to, just so that we know it's a different body, we'll assign some a different color to this guy. All right, we'll just apply a blue, and we'll just call that one as blue body in here. And there it goes. So right now I have the gray body and the blue body with one extrude, and it continues, right? So I could use, so if you look at my model tree here, right, when I drag it up, there's as you can see, the yellow body is back up in there, and there's nothing contributing at this point, as you can see. But as I change my feature order, right, things are getting, there it is, there's a yellow body. We created a couple of rounds and all that, and then, right, and then we did the body merge when it got consumed, and then your final. So you can see how just some basics in here, how it's being used. And I could also assign different materials, right? So that is one of the other use case for applying different bodies to the same part. So maybe I could go to my part, and I say, okay, let's go assign some material here. So I want to go steel, right? That's the material I've assigned in here, and by default, as you can see, it applies to both the bodies, right? So that's the default behavior, right? There it goes. So I have my materials box in the part mode right in there, and then I also got my individual bodies each have steel in there. I could go to the blue body, for example, and I could say, let's assign a different material, right? I can do that, right? I could just go, we'll just assign some stainless steel, for example, right? I've assigned a different body there, and now you see how gray bodies assigned a specific material, and this have specific material, and all those will affect mass properties and everything, right? So I could, if I have to do my little analysis now and do a mass property calculation, and let's do a little quick one in here. Based on my unit system, it gives you obviously your surface area, mass, CG location, etc. But at the bottom, now that we support multi-bodies, you could see it kind of highlights the material. I mean, it tells you the material used, and both the bodies are contributing for my mass at this point. Now, you could have a situation where you're probably using this blue body just for construction purposes, and you would like to skip it from actual mass property calculation, and that's also pretty easy, right? You just set this as a construction body, right? So there's kind of like a different body types. There's a question on the different body types, and this is one of the body types essentially, right? I could set that as a construction body, and it has a little icon. The icon changed a little bit there, as you can see. And now if I try to do my mass properties and do a little preview and look at the information dialog box, you could see how it says that the blue body, which is construction, has been skipped, right? So you'll obviously see some less mass compared to, without that cylindrical geometry's weight in there or mass in there, right? So this is just the basics, and you can assign not just materials and different appearances. You can also assign different parameters, right? I mean, we all know how parameters are so important. Let me just unset that as construction here. I could just go, go to parameters, and I'm under the body. See that? That's I'm going to the body, and then there it has obviously its material properties, parameters that are default based on what I assigned. But I could add a new parameter in here, and we'll just call it test in here. I'm just, just a usual string, or whatever type of parameter you want, right? I'm just going to call it blue in here, maybe the color or something like that, right? So that's it, right? So I have now. How would you, for example, call that out in a 2D drawing, maybe as a note and everything? So again, you use the same syntax that we used to use for component ID, feature ID. It's the same thing, right? So you would go give the ampersand, right? You will just go the and then you'll just go model. Let me just you'll go the feature, actually the parameter name, right? So it'll be the parameter name, and then colon. It'll be, instead of feature ID, there's going to be a body ID, BID. underscore, you're going to give whatever the body ID is going to be, right? Or the body name. You could either give the body ID or the body name, right? So you just give it the body name or the ID right in there, and that's the same thing just we used to use for feature ID. So just to some basics in here as to starting Creo 7, you're going to see this behavior, right? Okay, so there's just some clicks and picks and basic things, and the way you can configure a tree. That's kind of what we covered so far. Now, getting back up here to my presentation, where could these be potentially used to improve your productivity and usability of the software, right? I'm sure all of you have been using Creo for a while. You probably have different use cases depending on your on the industry you are in and the products you're developing or designing. So one thing is the Boolean operations, right? You could essentially use one body as a tool to subtract geometry from another geometry or from another body. So typically you would have used some quilts and surfacing, right? You might be a surfacing expert where you probably did some quilt, merge, and then remove or solidify. So we got an alternate and easier option now, rather than having a giant model tree with a lot of curves and surfaces in there. You're probably able to do that with solid bodies now. And then there's for additive manufacturing, you may want to have different bodies having their own build profiles, build processors, right? Or how would you create your lattice structure instead of a specific geometry? You could assign that to a body. In generative design, it's very useful wherein you're able to specify what is going to be your overall envelope that the system needs to work with for its topology or generative optimization. But you could also say, I want to keep out these bodies from any optimization, or I want to keep these areas, it should be preserved always, no matter what, things like that. And in simulation and fluid flow, especially, I'm sure all of you know, when you do a CFD analysis, you need a fluid volume and the actual solid volume, right? It could be internal, it could be external, depending on is it an internal flow or an external flow. For there, that's another good use case for the multi-body capability inside of Creo 7. And by the way, there's no license or anything required for this. All you have to have is Creo 7. If you're on Windchill, you got to make sure you're in a Creo 7 that is compatible with a Windchill release. That's something we'll talk through towards the end. But yeah, all you need is Creo 7, and you're able to use the multi-body. It's included. It's part of the base package in there. Injection molded parts, when you have multi-shot, multi-material injection molded part, could be useful there. And 2D drawings, they support for hatching, for hide and hide. Even your repeat region BOM tables inside of a part could have these multi-body material listed in there. So the repeat region supports these bodies now, okay? And if some of you may be using master model methodology, which is great, but then there's another option now, right? Or maybe you may be using sheet metal design where you might need the multi-body concept in there, where you may be you may have an overall volume or a space claim within which your sheet metal should be designed. That could be one body, and then you're going to build another body that's going to be a sheet metal body referencing that. In data exchange, when it comes to importing non-Creo files, you're able to leverage this multi-body so that it brings in the bodies if done in the other CAD system as this, rather than bringing it as one single multiple parts. I would like you to bring it as one single part with multiple bodies in there, for example, right? If that source CAD system had the capability of multi-body. For example, the SolidWorks have multi-body there, and if they had that, we're able to add some configuration instead of Creo to take advantage of the bodies in that non-Creo file format that can exist instead of Creo as a body as well. And then Windchill, visualization, when you go to Creo view or you check into Windchill, what happens currently? If you're on any release other than 12, it's like 11.1, 11.2, or 10.0, etc. You're just going to see a single part, and you're not going to see that structure inside if you use WT part structures and whatnot. However, when starting Windchill 12 and Creo 7.0.2.0, there is an option where you could designate instead of Creo those multiple bodies as .prts, so that after check-in, if you use the Windchill WT parts or your part structure, it can contribute to that. But again, that's new in Windchill 12 there, right? Same thing with visualization. If you were to create that lightweight viewable, if your part contains the bodies, it's able to generate the bodies for the visualization side, as well as there are some checks, config checks in the model check that can be configured to check for multi-bodies, multi-material, multi-body components, right, or parts, I should say. Okay, so just to show you some examples of how multi-body is a little more faster compared to your traditional surfacing that you may have used, for example, to create a pattern like this, right? You see, it could be done with some relations or with some fill patterns, and it's a little bit involved, but all I really need is create another body with the gray body there, pattern it, and then kind of use that to subtract you know, or remove material from my yellow body. I'm almost using it as an operation here, right? Almost as a tool. And here's your multi-material injection molded part in here. So there's my overmold. And you know, so I might want to create these as separate parts. Finally, though, I may still want to have them as .prts. And from a multi-model part, there's a way to simply create a new part. It'll do a copy geom of that and create a new part. So there's quite a lot of workflows. It's a lot more flexible overall for the different use cases there, right? So maybe let's just go through a few more examples, and then we'll probably get to the questions as we go here. So just wanted to walk through some of these maybe real quick here on these Boolean operation use cases. Let's say, let's just get to another one in here. Got a part that I usually show to our customers on one of the simple examples, the simple pattern I'm going to do. But my goal is to create something like this is where I want to get to, right? This is my final design intent, or this is the geometry. And you might think, oh yeah, it looks like a pattern. However, it's kind of like a variable pattern, and there are a couple of ways of doing it, right? You could probably write some relations and say decrease it, or maybe do some sketches inside and then say fill within that. And you know, there's a couple of ways of doing it, but an easy way, what is the advantage or a benefit of using multi-body to create this, right? I'm not saying this cannot be done in Creo 6 or 5 or 4 or even the wildfires in the old Pro Engineer days. We could do it, right? There's always a way to do it, and it's Pro Engineers has always been powerful with a lot of features. We can do it. But I got it done, as you can see, not a lot of features in here, and that's kind of how I got it on. So how would I do it, right? So I already have some of these done, and some just basic, you could see that should be just added an extrude, a couple of rounds in here, did a shell, pretty straightforward so far, basic modeling in here, right? And then an extrude and a couple of rounds. And so having done that, I'd like to go and let's see here if I could go add another extrude in here somewhere, right? I want to go right in there. We'll start adding that gray extrudes, you know, the gray body new extrude in there. So maybe I want to go add this as a reference so it can pick some dimensions off of that guy. Let's see here. We'll just give it a specific, just bear with me while I put in some known dimensions here. There it goes, right? So and there we go. So again, this is something I'm going to go symmetric. I really like how starting Creo 6, you're able to pretty much focus on your design without worrying about the dashboard, right? Everything is right there on your mouse cursor, pretty much, right? You're able to change everything. You know, you don't have to go up there, and you can even use a little full screen mode. That's going to be very helpful. That is introduced in Creo 4. It kind of forces you to use these new usability enhancements in there, right? So I'm going to go symmetric, and let's just say I want to make it a little bit larger than, you know, it has to cut through that jump. So we'll just roughly do it like that. Right now, it'll pick the yellow or the main body's color attributes, but I'm going to say, let me create a new body out of this, right? There it goes, and now it has a new body, and there comes, just like my previous example, we got two bodies in here, right? There it is. And now I'm going to go, let's add some more contributing features to this, maybe a quick chamfer in here. I could have probably added that to the sketches. So it's a good practice to break up your sketches and add them as features, right? It's feature-based modeling as always. So here, let's just give it a specific value in here. So I'm going to give it, just give it something like that. There it goes. So this is the geometry I want to remove in here, right? That's the profile actually. And then now is that we have two features. You can do your typical grouping. I just, you know, there it is. I'm just grouping the features in there. I'm able to just do a pattern right in there, and again, different types of patterns in here, your direction pattern, dimension pattern. Right now, I already have a dimension controlling the direction there, so I'm going to just use that and say, let's give it an increment of 2.5. Let's give it about, that's probably, we'll just give it a little more. There it goes, right? Something like that. So I did a very simple pattern so far, and they're all, as you can see, as soon as the number of features in a contributing for a body goes more than 6, the system will compress and only show the later features, right? So it's going to, you can always expand it, and all that right in there. So you could see that it's the pattern, it's kind of showing all that in there. So, or you could even choose in your tree filters and in there to say, okay, you want to really show those contributing features or not, right? Or if I select a geometry here, do you want me to auto-locate in the subnode of the body or elsewhere, right? All that can be configured again, right, in the tree filters. So having gotten that, that pattern now, the next step would be to remove just the material, outside right in there, right? So we probably want it somewhere inside. So I'm going to go and do a little extrude on that yellow body, but this time I'm going to use my offset. I'm going to loop it right through this. Maybe I want to just, let's see the arrow here. The arrow is pointing out, so we want to give it a negative, just give it a negative value in here. I just give it a negative 0.3, something like that. There it goes, right? So there it goes. So, and then I want to go make it, maybe cut it, just give it a specific value there. I'm going to also go remove material. When you remove material, again, which side you want to remove, right? Inside or outside, there it is. That's what, you're able to control that. And you want to keep, is it going to cut through all or the selected body, So all that is, as you can see, I've done that. Looks pretty straightforward so far. Now, if I look at it, do a cross section on this, right? So let's say I do a little, I'm going to do my cross section on this. We'll just do a planar cross section through this. And if I cut through this right now, right, you're going to see intersection or interference in there. So again, I could go to my options and say show interference in red in there, show the 2D view and all that good stuff, right? This is all there in Creo 2.0. If you may have noticed it, very useful in assemblies and parts, right? And right now with parts, now that we have multi-bodies, you could see there's interference in there, right? So we obviously need to remove that body or subtract, right? You need to do a Boolean operation here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that yellow body here, right? And I'm going to say, let's just do, you can merge, or you could do intersect, or you could do subtract. And for the modifying bodies, I just select this, right? And there it goes, right? So I'm able to subtract. By default, it consumes that body, right? Whenever you can also choose to keep it, but there's your little body subtract, and it is consumed right now, right? So again, if I want to apply some specific colors to it, I could go to my little query selection here. You have your intent surface for that body subtract in there, right? I'm able to go select that surface in there and say, okay, for this, let's apply, I don't know, we'll just apply a different color or something like that right in there, right? So you're able to capture, you're able to do these type of geometries, features without using surfacing or quills or remove. It's just another option here, right? So that might be helpful. Another one to quickly go over is maybe there's something, maybe I want to build a cooling channel in here, and I already created this 3D curve, and I've used several bodies for this. I'll explain that. But right now, all I want to do is do a sweep in here, right? I want to do a quick sweep in there. Let's just give it a sketch of about, let's see, let's give it a diameter in here. We'll just specify a specific diameter. As I'm doing this, right now as sweep, why is it not showing up all the way right in here? Right now it shows as a merged feature, right? It's a one single body, but I'm able to go say, use this as a separate body, and there it is, right? I've created my cooling channel, and that looks good. But the problem now is if I look at my cross section, I do have a cross section, here, cross section right in there. If I go and say right click and show interference, there is interference, right? How do I get rid of the interference at the same time have the cooling channel geometry, right? So that's when you could again use the same method, right? Like last time, where I would just go and subtract, right? So I want to go to if you look at my bodies, I have the main body, the big body there, and then I'm going to go say I want to go do a little Boolean operation on it, right? So I'll just go subtract, and I'm going to use my modifying bodies as this one, and it consumed it. But right now it's not keeping the body, but I'd like to keep the body. So I want to go enable that keep body option. So it kept it, but now it got rid of that interference in here. So if I kind of hide this, the other body right now, so if I go hide that, you can see that you do have that remove material inside. So there's no interference, and then hide it, etc. Right? Even the way that we have created these 3D curves, you could use bodies there also. It's if I go just to insert drag a little bit about here, before doing that, I want to just go unhide some of these. Let me just go and yeah, there it is. Yeah, if I go back up here, yeah, to one of these features, and I want to go and let's see if I could unhide this, show this. Maybe I don't need the main body anymore. I'm going to hide actually this one here. There it goes. So so here's again, I have interference, right? I've sometimes you would use body just to create some specific geometry in there, right? I'm doing maybe a couple of patterns and mirroring and all that, and then I did my round and extrude, just just did a cut in here, did some rounds in here. But at this point of time, what I could do is I could do a body intersect. So when you do Boolean operations, right, you have your merge, subtract, or intersect. I'm able to use an intersect and say this and this, and you see how you would get the intersect. And all I have to do is do a composite curve off of this, right? Once you get that. So that's kind of what you see, this little intersect feature in here, where I'm using the intersect to create that curve. So now it's pretty straightforward, right? I just hold my shift key, grab this, do a control C, control V, copy paste, and I got a curve in there, right? So all this, typically you would have used your surfacing and quills. It's really nice and easy when you do it this way. And there's my my final. Now, once I've done with the curve, I don't really need this body anymore. I used it as a tool to create this essentially, right? I could just go and say remove the body. So I don't need it anymore, and I've done the remove body, and that body is gone, right? All I have is the main body, right, that I hid earlier, and I have my curve. And so just just to give you some kind of context in here as to where these could potentially be used, right, other than just your normal remove, add material for surfacing. This entire thing, even this, the way that I would have removed geometry in here, I could have used multiple bodies. So as I drag up more and more in my model tree, can you see how I have my main, the pocket insert, the curve base, right? That's for the pocket in there. So there, there's another one we did. We had another body just for this one in here, right? That's before this curve intersect. There it is, right? The curve base. There's all these were done as bodies in here. So just to give you some context and some examples here where you can see some of the other use cases in there. So going back up here, if you have this kind of injection molded multi-material model where you have the main design body, you can see, and then the over mold, right? Yeah, ultimately you may want them as separate .prt files. That's understandable, right? However, while creating, could we just use this multi-body concept and leverage that? So we could even use UDFs in bodies, and that's an example I want to quickly show you too. So if I have this this part in here, right, wherein I already have this this housing done, as you can see, this is overmold. One of them is already there. So if you look at my two bodies in here, there's a housing body and the overmold body. I could isolate one, right? I could isolate this guy here, right, or see just that without this. So I'm doing basic hide and hide. And this is not an assembly, as you can see, it's .prt, right? It's a part file. Now, what is the advantages here is, again, I have this cross section here. Maybe I want to go activate the cross section. I want to probably show, let's just see if I could show, edit the, yeah, there it is, right? You could go edit the hatching here, and I'm able to go to body, and I'm able to just select individual bodies in here, right? I'm able to select this body, and I'm going to make it, apply like the newly introduced Creo 2 hatching style and all that, or maybe I can have it, I'm able to do kind of like you would do in an assembly, right, where you're having different hatching style. So you see support, it is supported here as well, right? And even in the hatching areas in there, right? So that's, and you can display cross section and everything there. So I could just say show cross section outside. There's your cross section, right? Right now, let me just deactivate it and also hide the cross section and all that. What if I want to create another one in here, right? So this is where you could take advantage of the UDF. You know, the UDF can reference bodies and your usual references and coordinate systems and whatnot. So I do have a coordinate system here where I'm going to place my second body in here. So I'm going to go use my, let's see if I could open up one of my UDFs in here. It's a group file. I have that as a cutout. So there it is, right? And I'm going to go and let me just go advanced reference configuration. And I'm going to select this coordinate system here. And it's asking for the surface. So maybe the top surface, now the bottom surface, and maybe it's asking for the main body, right? It's, you know, if you see the proms in here, right? It is asking for the, and then now it's the other body in there, and there it goes, right? So what I have is, if you think about the UDF that I created in order to create this is the same methodology that I showed earlier, right? So where you got your extruded cut on the main body, and then your second extrude, all this is still on the main body, right? And then this is, and then adding a couple of rounds, and now the sweep. If you look at the sweep itself, right, and look at the section in here, I'm using that section, and that's where I said new body, and I was able to capture that in my UDF also, right? That's kind of how it knew to add that. So now under the overmold, you know, a body, it's going to add that. And then obviously to remove interference, we subtracted that and added a couple of, you know, just extrudes in there and remove material. And there it goes, right? So if I look at my cross section here again and activate the cross section, there it is, right? So again, now finally, once I'm done with all this, I probably wanted to, would like to have this as separate parts.prt by itself. Yes, that's possible. I can just go to the housing and right click, and I could just go create a part out of that right in there, right? Using my default template, and what exactly it is, it's an external copy job, right? So that is the external copy job. So obviously the dimensions and everything are not going to be in this model, but this could be more from your for your manufacturing standpoint. You know, you want to add these, you want to create these separate parts from one single part. You do have that option, right? So that's what I wanted to make sure you understand it too. So you have this body, one part having two bodies, and then each body could be its own little parts out there too, right? The other one, I forgot to do the second one in there, but you can do that for the second part. You know, for the overmold, also you can create a new part there. And the next thing here is just to go over some more use cases as we are running close here. Master model methodology, right? Used in both surfacing as well as in general top-down design. As you know, we create an envelope geometry to capture the space claim, and then we kind of build around it. So, you know, typically, yeah, this is where you want to go, right? You have an assembly, and then your different components, and you typically have a master model in there. So could be just use multi-body there, where here's my space claim that I may have as surfaces. That would be a body, and even all of the others could be different bodies, and then I could kind of, you know, export, or you know, I shouldn't say export. I should be able to create a part from them. So just some other use case there. By the way, you could even split. I don't think I showed you an example of split. You should be able to quickly, if I go to, yeah, let's see if I can open up another part in here. So something like this, right? So right now it looks like a pretty straightforward geometry in there, right? You have some single part. I should be able to go and split if I have one of the datum planes, like your right plane or something. I should be able to, you know, right now it's single body, but I could go split body, and I could either split by an object, which is a quilt or a plane, or an actual volume if there's a gap, right? So I'm going to go select that. Let's see here if I could go to one of the datum planes in here, right? Yeah, there it is, right? So one I could, the body to split is this guy here, and there it is split right now. So now I have two bodies out of that single body. You know, you see the different color, the gray color appeared in there. So there's one piece, there's a second piece, and I can manipulate it that way. or if I already have a gap. So sometimes you might already have, for example, you may already have, for example, something like this where, you know, so if it's like this, then also you could do the split body, right? I can do a split body, and then I could select the body to be split, but this time I'm going to use a volume itself, right? Under the splitting object, I'm going to use the volume, and that's the volume I used, right? So it understands that since it has a gap that has a volume in there, and there it goes, right? You could do it a couple of ways there, right? Yeah, master model methodology, and then in 2D drawings, we already talked about how it has different hatching styles. They also have repeat region capability inside of a part mode to manage these, to show, I should say, these parameters like materials of different bodies. For example, in that injection molded part, I could have just created a 2D drawing for that part, and also display the actual material parameters for your repeat region in there, right? So that's, and you can hide, unhide. So it's supported throughout pretty much, right? And the multi-body concept in here. So if I open up a 2D drawing in here real quick, and let's say I'm going to hide these planes and everything. So same thing, right? I have my drawing tree and my model tree in here. So I should be able to just go to the overmold, right click, and maybe hide in model, and it's no longer in there. Or I could just go, let me just select this guy and say show in model in there, or hide in, and the hatching style can be changed right in there. I should be able to go and just, edit the properties of that hatching. And even though the drawing uses the old menu manager, you do have the option for the body right in there, right? So I can go to the body. I could say next, as it's selecting that. So maybe this is the body I wanted to control. And I could go to my spacing and do a little half, double, So it's all supported in different areas, and also even tables, right? You may have seen starting Creo 2.0, PTC introduced a lot of quick tables for you, right? As an admin, if some of you may be having an admin role, you don't have to create them from scratch every time. You do have a lot of predefined bill of material table, tool table, manufacturing table, rev table, depending on the use case. But there they have for the body, right? For the bill of material right in here, even though it's a part, body description down, body description up. So I should be able to go select this, and how did it know to put in the silicone rubber material for the overmold or for the housing, the material for the housing? Because there was a repeat region in there, right? So if I go to my repeat region and switch symbols in here, they have model body PTC material option. So if I were to really quickly create that from scratch, maybe we'll get rid of the one that I brought that PTC has already developed. But what if I had my own, right? I have most companies, you all use your own, right? I have my custom repeat region in here. I should be able to go to repeat region, and if I go switch symbols, they only have the repeat index in here. I'm going to add others in here, right? I'm going to go add the body, I'm going to ensure that it always puts in the body name. So if you were to do it from scratch, you would go just once, right? An admin would be doing this typically in a company, but you would just say, so model, body, and name, right? So similarly here, I would go material. So I would go model, body, PTC material. Your material parameters show up. Maybe you might have user-defined parameters. So I could just go model, body, user-defined, and I have a user-defined material, a parameter called mass, and maybe the units for that mass, right? So again, I go model, body. So body's there, even now repeat regions. That's the bottom line I'm trying to explain here. And then I'm going to go to that user-defined material property or the parameter. And now if I go and say switch symbols, there it goes, right? So you have your item number, your housing, your mass, and then your units. And you could also go to your repeat region and let's say change the attributes of that drawing and say I want to probably use recursive. So if I do want to show the actual part also, right? And what material do I want to display for the part? Again, there's a drawing setup file option for that, right? You would go to your detail options, and you would just say, okay, you just look for material, and they got PTC reported material and repeat regions. How should it show? If it's a multi-material model, you want to show multi-material, should it be empty or should it be having a list in there? So you get to control that. So yeah, the point is it's pretty much it's applicable in the variety of different areas, including sheet metal, flexible modeling extension, under model check, so in sheet metal, as you can see here, I have these two are copy geom, but then I pulled it from another body in here, and when I flatten it or bend it or unbend it, I would like those two bodies to move along with the sheet metal part. I could use it for that. That's another one little use case. Maybe some of you may be using flexible modeling extension, wherein you get some imported geometry, or even for late state design changes, you don't want to go through their typical edit definition. You want to do a quick move, right? You want to do a quick change, shape or recognize something, do some shape recognition and do quick moves. There also you could use the flexible modeling extension. So for example, if I were to go into, let's see here, if I could open up one quick example in here. I got this this body or this component that I imported. Let's see, as you can see, there's an imported feature right in there, right? Maybe it's a step or IGES, or maybe a SolidWorks Inventor, CATIA file, what have you, right? I brought this in, and now I need to make some changes. Now, and the thing is, even when you bring in files, it's going to be bodies, right? It's going to be one single body. But what I could do, I could go to my flexible. So if I go to the flexible modeling in here, I should be able to go split this, right? So if I go and let's just first split it and create multiple bodies, I should be able to go and split body, and the body to be split is this guy. But then the splitting object, let's see here, I probably want to select that datum plane that goes right through the center in there, right? There it goes, right? Now immediately it has created two, you can see from the color, right? Maybe let's just break this one more time. I want to do a split body of this guy, and maybe use a splitting object as the datum, not that one, maybe datum 2, there it goes. So that I really have, as you can see, so you got multiple bodies in here, right? So I did, if you look at my 3 bodies in here, body 1, body 2, body 3, just so that the body 3 is different, we'll just go assign some other color here, just so that we know. We'll just go view, I'm just gonna go apply a different color for this body. So you get the idea here. So that's one body, there's another body, and there's another body here, right? And you could take advantage of the flexible modeling tools in here. It's pretty powerful, right? This has been there since Creo 2, right? Your move, your shape recognition, etc. And in here, if I go to this body, right? This is the body that I wanted to modify. I'm gonna go use a simple move using dragger, and I probably want to use the axis as my reference in here, and maybe I want to let's just do a quick move here. We'll just give it a specific angle or something like that. And just give it a 15-degree angle, and you're thinking, what is that? That has created an interference. Yes, absolutely. But however, going back to the body option, the Boolean operation that I keep mentioning, I should be able to go do a merge between this guy and this one in here. So now that it's merged, what about the problem I have here is, there's some issues in that, in here. So I'm in my geometry, and I should be able to just go select these different geometries, and I can just quickly remove, as you can see here, these surfaces and all these, right? I should just be able to simply go remove inside of that, right? So there's where it can join back again. It's probably gonna it's taking more time in here than I thought, but yeah, you're able to use some quick FMX while it's still thinking on that one right here. Let me just, as the time goes in here, when you bring in files for data exchange, right, bringing in files from a different CAD system, there's an option to ensure that it imports it as multiple bodies rather than bringing it into different parts, right? So it's not something you have to set up in your import area. So for example, let me just go into Creo here. Let me just, there it goes. If I go to my task manager real quick. While it's coming up, let me also see if there's any questions in here as we go through some of these. It's pretty, yeah. And then one other thing you could do is also the visualization side. When you export from Creo into your visualization format, like PVZ file manually, or maybe you have your CAD worker that sits and spits out the visualization for you. if that part has multiple bodies, when you open it inside of Creo view, you're going to see those bodies, including the construction body in there, right? So that's a few other options that might help. With Windchill specifically, right, by default, as of now, compared, before Windchill 12, it's just going to you're just going to see one single part, and not the bodies are not going to not going to exposed in your Windchill WT part structure. However, starting Windchill 12 and Creo 7.0.2.0, right, you are able to go and designate the body and specify that overmold body, the main body, is .prt extensions. You can designate that inside of Creo. That way, when you check into Windchill and look at your WT part structure, you have the part, even though it's a .prt, you are able to see the structure, the bodies, I should say, can contribute to your structure, right, to your WT part structure there, if you are currently using WT part. So that's just another thing that's coming up in, obviously, Windchill 12 and Creo 7 supports that. And you may have simulation use cases, like I was talking about earlier, where you have these fluid volumes, and that could be using multiple bodies. This plunger here, for example, that could be another body that I'm using to run some what if scenarios for my fluid flow, right? And for additive manufacturing, to create your lattice structure, that could be in one specific body, and even in additive manufacturing, right? So when you have these multiple bodies in there, I'm able to specify, I'm able to ensure that I create different build processor parameters to specific bodies, right? That's an advantage in there, apart from creating your lattice structure itself, right? And finally, if you use generative design, these are some of these new technologies on generative design or in additive manufacturing or on simulation. We have done quite a few webinars. Feel free to check out our other webinars at TriStar that go in depth into it. They're also, right, when I'm trying to get this type of a design, I need to give some solution space for the software, wherein this would be the blue body was one body where I want to make sure that the design is preserved, right? Certain areas I want to exclude, but this is the area will be my envelope that I'm going to have it optimized, or maybe think about reducing the strain energy, or keeping in mind the stiffness. I may do some optimization, some topology optimization inside of generative design. For those also, bodies come in very handy in there, right? So just to kind of wrap up here as we are closing in on time, if some of you are still thinking about upgrading to Creo 7, maybe from 4, 5, or 6, here's just a quick snapshot of the product calendar from PTC. Creo 7 was released about exactly a year ago, right? Creo 8 is slated for next year. Next month, I should say. But Creo 7.0.3.0 is what is the latest date code in there. So that's one thing, right? So it's been there for quite some time now. But you obviously want to make sure that your Windchill for Creo 7 is at least 11.1 with that specific critical path set, or at least 11.2 or 12. Those are the ones that are supported for that. So some of the examples I showed you are really straight out of PTC's own tutorials. They have a pretty good documentation these days on what's new. There are even community blogs from PTC in the PTC community area that I would encourage you to go look at. That'll kind of help you. The what's new documentation has some examples and tutorials on specifically to multi-body use cases, and you could try to network there with other users that are currently using too. And as always, a lot of documentation as to what's new, things like that you want to check out first before upgrading to Creo, right? And all our recordings, including this one, it'll be made available. They're all if you visit tristar.com and go to resources, it's available there. Or you could go to our YouTube channel, and YouTube, you just look for TriStar Incorporate, and then you should be able to watch the recordings from there as well. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions real quick as we getting close on time here. So let's see here. One question, let's see here. What are all the body types? Oh yeah, I think we answered that, right? The construction body, you could have contributing body, right? Those are, I think we answered that during the demo. can you use a merge or inheritance as a construction body? Yeah, I think I showed you about that, right? So yes, yes, you are able to use the merge or inheritance. You're able to do that as a the construction body is more like a setup, right? You're setting it up after the fact, actually. So, are the body parameters available for Windchill? Can they be designated? Yes, I think that is the one thing I demonstrated towards the end, where you would need Windchill 12.0 or Creo 7 and Creo with Creo 7.020, where where we are able to designate that body for WT part structure, but for just the body parameters themselves, you should be able to expose them, but it's going to be only in Windchill 12 with a newer release in there. Why doesn't the cut go all across the part? What limited it to leave a bit of material at the edge? I'm not sure which. When I did the cut, if you remember with the example, I had done the cut not on the entire geometry. I'd done the cut using an offset, the sketch. There was an offset sketch I created, and that's where I said I want to do the cut inside or outside. Remember the direction. That's what it prevented from cutting it on the outside. Let's see. Yeah, that's yeah. I think those are the only questions in here. Let me just see if there's any other questions on there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks again for all your time, and then feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. 800-800-1714, or please visit us at tristar.com. And thanks for your time. I hope this was informative. Until we see you in the next webinar, you all have a great rest of the day and a great week ahead. Thanks.